Interesting question. First, it's worth slightly rephrasing it because success, talent and intelligence are relative, and in reality what we see is that it's a comparison between themselves and others. Also, while we're about it, let's add in attractive, shall we? Smiley face. Why do people hate those who are more successful, talented, intelligent or attractive than them? Second, it's then worth pointing out that this hatred doesn't occur for everyone in the world who is more successful, etc., than them. It tends to be those who you can reasonably compare yourself to. And that's generally people you know, those in your family and extended family, your classmates at school, your workmates at work. Not many people hate Bill Gates or Jeff Bezos, for instance. Well, you might dislike their politics or feel they are too wealthy, but unless you were Jeff Bezos' old school friend, who felt you were just as smart as he was, you're unlikely to feel rabidly jealous of them. In other words, what's happening here, is that you're comparing yourself to others in a similar position to yourself, and coming to the conclusion that you are, for some reason, less than them. And that hurts. One question to ask before we go further is to consider why it hurts. The answer is that, to an extent, it's built into our nature as a result of evolution. You see, we've been built to compete with our fellow man for resources, for food, sexual partners, safe shelters, to name the most basic and important. Those who were more successful at obtaining these resources were more likely to survive to spread their genes. Those who were less successful tended not to survive so well. For that reason, evolution built into us the emotion of envy. It's an unpleasant emotion to experience, but it does spur us on to get even, either by bringing them back down to our level again by some often underhanded means, or else by upping our game and getting ahead of them. That's not the only reaction we can have when we perceive others more successful than us. Rather than get envious and hatch plans to get even, we may just conclude that we really are inferior to them, and that there is no way to compete. And this may well also be an evolutionary adaptation. It's the dominance hierarchy. Those higher up in the hierarchy get to lord it over those below them, which feels good to them, and those below just bloody well avoid conflict by taking what's dished out to them, otherwise they're likely to come out the worse for wear. However, despite saying that these feelings of envy or inferiority are more or less pre-programmed into us via evolutionary forces, they are not preordained reactions that we need to have. And that's because even though we do compete with our fellow human, we also very often collaborate with them in order to achieve shared goals. Humans, by the way, are pretty unique in our level of collaboration. There's a theory that our evolution led us to self-domesticate, so that we became less inclined to fight over resources, and develop a social conscience. And that meant we developed emotions of modesty, fairness and empathy for others in distress. Why is that, you ask? Well, humans spent millions of years as a species living in small hunter-gatherer tribes. And, as we all know, if your little group of people you live with can focus on shared goals, hunting down a big game animal, for instance, then you're more likely to do well than if you all act independently. So, taking that into account, if someone in your group does well, your reaction may not be envy or inferiority, it may well be jubilation and appreciation that this person has been successful, because you will benefit from their success. As a modern example, if my friend at work gets promoted, I will more often than not feel pleased for them. If nothing else, their greater power and influence can help me, since they're my friend and might be in a better position to help me. All of which means, it's complicated. We are networked, and we have a shifting network of those we consider allies and enemies as well as those we consider neutral. Our reaction to the success or otherwise of those in our network depends to a great deal on how we view them. If we view ourselves as in competition with them, then we hate their successes and feel cheered by their failures, whereas if we see them as allies, we cheer their success and feel the need to comfort them for their failures.